Well, I'm sure that you can tell by the start of the recording that we are here for the community meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is going to be a good one today. I think we pulled through with some presenters at the last minute. My understanding was that we weren't going to have any, but then Chris, that's news to me. So we have someone here to join us.
We do. We have our friends Govind and Rishabh. They're going to be going through OpenSearch metrics and benchmarking, some high-level things about what they're collecting, what they're looking at, and kind of the tools that are being used for this.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's get some of our netiquette out of the way. Please introduce yourself before speaking. I'm Nate Boot. I'm a developer advocate for OpenSearch. You just met Christopher Dane. He's our community manager.
Hello.
I suppose you could have introduced yourself. I apologize for taking that away.
That's good. It's all good.
Cool. Please mute yourself unless actively speaking. Your cameras are, of course, optional. Questions anytime in chat or audio, and if you are disruptive, we will remove you from the premises. We've also turned off screen annotations. Your profiles will only show names. Only hosts or co-hosts can share their screen, and we like to keep a few co-hosts around to make sure people are removed promptly if they are disruptive. And since you're here, you've typed in the passcode that we now require. Thank you very much. And no renaming yourself. Please. Thank you. Is that it? That's the last of it? Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got some announcements for you today. I was going to let Chris cover OpenSearchCon, but before he takes all of the thunder out of it, registration closes tomorrow. And so if you have not registered, like, now is the time. Like, go now. Right now.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Go register. While you're at it, book your hotel.
Yeah, totally. It's actually a pretty good rate. We've got a nice block there. If you want to stay at the hotel where the conference is, so that will work out quite well. Anything else regarding OpenSearchCon, Chris?
Yeah, so we're going to start off the week with this wonderful unconference. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got this little agenda planned where basically we're going to start the room with handing everyone a card. They're going to give their talk and title, and then we're going to have everyone vote on it. Once the voting's complete, a few of us are going to gather that up backstage, figure out who got the most votes, what kind of balance of talk we're going to have. And we're going to come back out and put them all up on the board and see who's giving the talk. Going to give everyone about 15 minutes to do as they please. What that means is you could have a talk that lasts 15 minutes and then we pull you off the stage. You could have a talk that's 5 minutes and then you give 10 minutes of Q&A, or 10 minutes of talk and 5 minutes of Q&A. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a really nice, somewhat unstructured and fun way to start the conference. So we're pretty darn excited to have everyone there. I think it's going to be about the first 150 people that show up are going to be able to come into the room with us. That's about the limit we have on that room. So show up early and show up ready. We're also going to end the week with this fantastic workshop that's been put together called When Life Hands You Data, Grab OpenSearch. You do need to register for that. There's a link inside of this link inside this link that I just put in chat. So go sign up. Free training is not a bad thing. So we'll hope to see you there as well. Nate, if you got anything to add, please do. Otherwise, again, registration closes tomorrow. If you have not registered, run over and do that right now. See y'all in Seattle next week. It's going to be a party.
Oh, it's going to be rad. Yeah. I have nothing to add. That, I like the idea of the unconference because it's going to be like, the whole like chaotic neutral conference and it's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm positive of that.
So as you can see, I have left today's agenda blank. I actually have the agenda info in my clipboard. I just didn't get to it in time for the meeting. Sorry about that. But we do have presenters today. And unless someone has something for the good of the order, I don't mind handing it over for the good stuff.
Let's do that.
Awesome. The stage is yours.
Hey, hi all. This is Rishabh. I'm on system development for looking for Amazon, and today, myself, and the performance team, I just want to showcase the OpenSearch benchmark matrix dashboard that we have come up with after getting a lot of feedback from the community. We did not have any platform where we could track or see the consistent benchmarking data for all the versions that we have released and all the versions that are in release, to see how they're faring against each other in terms of performance on indexing or query performance. So we got that feedback and we took it up on ourselves to come up with a dashboard where we can track all the released and unreleased version, their performance day in, day out. Before I start, I think I just want to have Govind talk about the OpenSearch benchmark briefly, to tell you all about the awesome benchmarking tool that we have. Govind, you want to take it up?
Sure. So, I mean, as you all know, OpenSearch is a fairly complex system with multiple concurrent tasks and processes, a distributed system. You can, in a running cluster, you might have indexing going on, a plethora of different queries, multiple users, multiple clients. So measuring performance is a complex endeavor. There are many different ways to measure performance, but the de facto mechanism that most people use is based on OpenSearch benchmark. OpenSearch benchmark was originally forked off from Rally, and essentially it's at its core, it is a client that is instrumented to keep track of throughput and latency metrics. So it issues requests for indexing for queries of different types, and every time it issues a query, it keeps track of the time and waits for the response to come back, and it keeps iterating over this process multiple times. And at the end of this whole cycle, it will produce information for the user, essentially percentile numbers for throughput and for latency, and the service time and so on. So there are many different ways you can run your workloads in. You can run indexing followed by queries, which is the normal process, or you can run them concurrently if you so wish. Now, the important part of any benchmarking is the kind of workloads that you're using. As we all know, OpenSearch is used by a wide variety of stakeholders. I mean, people who are using it
Govind?
for log analytics. Yes.
All right, my apologies for interrupting. Does one of you want to share your screen so we have something to
Yeah,
look at?
I think I'll hand it over to Rishabh in a minute. I'm just sort of setting the stage here. So he will show the dashboards and so on. So with regard to OpenSearch benchmark, essentially what we would be obtaining at the end is percentile numbers, percentile metrics for throughput and latency for the different queries that are there. So I think it's a good point. Why don't I hand it over to Rishabh so that he can show the results that we see, and then we can answer questions, and I can show you how OpenSearch benchmark actually runs if needed.
Yeah, thanks, Govind. I've put the benchmark repo in the chat for any of you who want to take a look what the tool is all about and how to use it. I'll just quickly share my screen. Okay. Hope everyone can see the screen. So this is our benchmark, performance benchmark page on opensearch.org/benchmarks, where you can see Essentially, what we do, just to give you a background, what exactly is happening in behind the scenes is like we have nightly runs. In the nightly run, what happens is like we bring up an OpenSearch cluster and then we run the benchmark against it using the OpenSearch benchmark tool, which Govind just talked about. And one of the features of the benchmark tool is like it generates metrics which can be ingested into a separate data store. Currently, it only supports OpenSearch as a data store. And so what we do is like whatever metrics are getting generated for each benchmark, we ingest it into a separate data store, and we use that data store to create this dashboard. So this UI is actually being powered by OpenSearch dashboards, and we have plugged that dashboard here. And like this is in general, we have put indexing and query performance for all the versions that we are supporting. Currently, we have decided to just go for the last released current 2.x line, which is gonna get released, and then we also track the main line, which is 3.0. And here you can see like the nightly numbers on indexing throughput with and without. We run it with and without security both, so you can see it. Here also, like apart from doing the regular cluster testing, we also test all the we also benchmark all the features that we are releasing. For example, we released segment replication recently, so we also benchmark that to see how it has impacted our performance metrics. Like here you can see with segrep disabled in HTTP logs, the indexing throughput is around 140, 145. But if you look at the segrep enabled, it goes up to for HTTP logs goes up to 180 or 150, 160. I'm sorry, here. Yeah, 180 and 160, 190. So this really, this really helps us to track whatever like devs are pushing in every day to see whether it's making an impact or not. Apart from indexing, we also have all the query latency, because we also got a lot of feedback. Like people wanted to see, hey, not just indexing, we're also interested in how a certain query is performing. For example, aggregate queries or sort queries. So we have put the dashboard here, and we are still working on it to make it more cleaner. I mean, yeah, at first it might come a bit too complex, but yeah, I mean, you can use your filters here. So like, for example, if you want to see 2.9, you can just skip that and it'll give you 2.9 numbers. But yeah, we are planning to add like we want to drill it down further at each query level, so that you have the performance number for at each query level. And just to give one heads up is like we currently are using HTTP logs and NYC taxis to run our benchmarks. So, and we also have plans to add new workloads, because we have feedback to add a lot more query types for our benchmarking, and this is like evolving quite fast. And Govind and Ian are working on improving the benchmark tool and also add new queries to it. So yeah, I mean, feel free to please go ahead and take a look at these benchmark charts that we have provided here. You want to go at each workload level and see what the indexing throughput has been lately. You can find all the numbers here. And if you find something that it's missing here, or you want something, or you want to improve something on this dashboard, please feel free to create an issue or give us a feedback on how would you like to, help make it better and more readable and understandable for you. But yeah, this is what we started with, but we have really big plans to take it a long way and help community to see the actual numbers, the performance numbers that we are tracking every day. So, I mean, that is it from my side. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, I think just to add to what Rishabh said, yeah, in the past, tracking OpenSearch performance was not done in a systematic way. So, I mean, there were people who were carrying out benchmarks and runs with OpenSearch benchmark, but running it with a standard, quote unquote, standard type of cluster over a period of time, and being able to take a look at the variations and identify if there are any regressions or performance improvements. That wasn't done in a community-oriented fashion. So I think what Rishabh has done is he put in a lot of work to get this dashboard up, essentially developing a CDK and a mechanism to set up clusters, spin them up with different configuration parameters, different instance types, different number of nodes, and so on. And once the cluster is spun up, then being able to set up a load generation host, which has OSB installed on it, and which can act as a client to impose the workload on the target cluster. And once that is done, he collects all these metrics, stores them in a data store, processes them, and then visualizes them with OpenSearch dashboards, as you saw. So to continue on what I was saying before, is one of the important things is the workloads themselves, and OpenSearch is generally used in two major scenarios. I mean, used in many scenarios, but overall, if you look at it at a high level, it's used for log analytics and for search workloads, and those are the two. So we are using two workloads here to represent those. HTTP logs that Rishabh just showed is a log analytics type workload, where you have a large number of documents collected over a period of time. Essentially, these are the logs from a web server over time. And this other one is NYC taxis, which is a search-oriented workload, which where you can measure query performance for various types of queries. And the workload over there is basically based on all the taxi trips that are taken in New York over a certain period of time. So where the ride started, where it ended, number of passengers, so on and so forth. So those are two representative type of workloads. When we are adding more going forward, evidently, you can't carry out these type of runs on 20 different workloads. I mean, that would be hard to sort of keep track of. So we're using these for a start, and we'll add more as they become more important. And in each of these workloads, he's measuring indexing and query performance for the different types of queries. And looking at all the percentile numbers, whether there are long tail issues and so on and so forth. So going back to OpenSearch benchmark, there are several features that it has, and we have documentation. I can share my screen, but essentially I think we are focusing more on not OpenSearch benchmark per se, but really this dashboard and these charts that the community can access, visualize, look at performance over the last 7 days, or which was in the screen that he showed earlier. Or you can click on perform a few clicks, and then you can say, let me look at the performance over the last month or the last 60 days or whatever it is, and you get the data, and you can zoom in on a specific query that you're interested in. If it's aggregation or sorts, you can probe for that one and check that out. So I think this gives a good assessment of performance at a high level. There is a lot more to be done with regard to OpenSearch benchmark itself, as well as adding more workloads or adding more visualizations, providing data on when aberrations happened, if for whatever reason maybe the run was not perfect, or if there was a performance improvement or a regression, being able to annotate that and track that. I think we are working on some of those aspects going forward. So let me open it up to any questions, and I think Rishabh can certainly provide information on the CDK, or if anyone wants to carry out runs of the same type, it should be fairly straightforward with all the tooling that has been developed, which is also in the open source domain.
Yeah, thanks, Govind. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that all the tools that are being used to generate this dashboard or generate the data are all open source. So for creating a cluster, we use the OpenSearch Cluster CDK package. You can also check it out. So this is a very handy package to quickly set up a single node or multi-node cluster on AWS, of course. And then once at the end of the deployment of basically it deploys a CloudFormation stack, which essentially contains the infra to run the OpenSearch cluster on it. And it does everything end to end for you. At the end of deployment, it'll just give an endpoint, which you can access, use to access the OpenSearch cluster. And we use that endpoint to run the OpenSearch benchmark tool. So benchmark, you can run a benchmark against remote clusters. So that's what we do. We use benchmark to run the nightly runs. And if you want to do locally, like you want to make sure the numbers that you're seeing here are honest and are up to the mark, you can very well create your own cluster and then use the benchmark tool to generate the same numbers and compare it. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Chris or Nate.
Why not both?
Thank you.
Looks like we have a raised hand. David Tippett, do you still have a question?
Yeah. Hi, David Tippett, developer advocate, also at AWS. Actually, part of the reason we wanted to have you guys on was Lucas asked last week, has there ever been any talk about either the ability to run these on demand or more frequently? In particular, he was asking because, some people might not have access to run a cluster of their own or a cluster within AWS using CDK. So has there been any talk about that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I can answer that perhaps, I mean, maybe in a tangential way. So essentially, you can use OpenSearch benchmark to target any cluster. So I'm not sure whether the question from the one that you got, David, was based on, where can you spin up a cluster? I mean, essentially, you would need to be able to spin up a cluster somewhere, whether it's on a node on your laptop, on in a data center, or on some instance. So wherever, I mean, you need to be able to spin up a cluster. It doesn't need to be in EC2 or in AWS, for instance. So as long as that has been done, then you can impose a workload on it through some kind of load generation machine. I mean, install OSB on another node and target that cluster. Now, OpenSearch benchmark can run on a single node and spin up. It can download OpenSearch and it can create a cluster on almost like a virtual cluster on the same machine, and you can carry out measurements that way. I mean, that would not be very accurate because you typically would want your system under test to be different, located in a different entity than the load generation host. So if the question was, are there resources elsewhere for people to spin up? I mean, then that's entirely up to the user to be able to create a cluster wherever. If they want to take a look at the numbers that we have that Rishabh has been generating, I mean, he's been spinning up a cluster every night and then carrying out performance runs over there. So, I'm not sure whether I answered the question in totality, but feel free to, clarify if needed.
Yeah, I mean, we also have our discussions internally. I mean, we are planning to come up with a solution where anybody who wants to run a benchmark can easily access a UI or an endpoint where they can just submit a request, ad hoc request to run a benchmark and get the final results back as a response. So that is still in discussions and hopefully should be feasible. But yeah, like as Govind suggested, you don't need this cluster CDK to run benchmark. Essentially, all benchmark tool needs is an endpoint where it is able to access the cluster. So it can be anywhere. It can be your own machine. It can be on GCP or Azure, anywhere. And you can just give that endpoint to OpenSearch benchmark tool to run the benchmark against it. But yeah, if you want to leverage our system, we do have plans for that, and hopefully something will come up in future.
Yeah, and I think that actually is right along the lines of what they were looking for. In particular, I think he didn't have the resources to spin up clusters,
Right.
through his company, because it is a cost to run clusters, run benchmarks, especially distributed. And that was his point was, he was working on a regression. He couldn't spin up a cluster to test it, and he was waiting on the nightly benchmark. So it's like doing a little bit of code, and then so actually the ad hoc thing would probably save a lot of time and that hassle. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, we have it in our roadmap. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, David.
Yeah, that being said, I would just put in a plug for the CDK. I mean, I've found that really handy. After Rishabh's work, it has been, there's a lot of nitty-gritty to spinning up a cluster, especially if you have a distributed cluster, setting it up on multiple nodes and so on. So that CDK package makes it a breeze. So just run it and then specify your instance types and the number of nodes and so on, any configuration parameters that you want and so on. And then the cluster is up and running, and then you can carry that out your tests and then use the CDK itself to terminate the cluster. So again, that's not the only way, obviously, as Rishabh said. I mean, there are many other options, but this is one of the ways to do it.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions about the visualizations and the charts and so on? I mean, we certainly solicit feedback, ways to make it more user-friendly, or specific views that might be more of interest. So I think we've come a long way since we started, in the sense that this type of information was not available earlier, and now I think we are running this every night. We're in a systematic way. We can look at the numbers, we can look at places where there are variances, and try and identify if these are because of changes to OpenSearch, whether there are changes, there are issues with the instance or the cluster, or possibly on the OSB side. So we are striving to reduce the variance and pinpoint cases where there might be differences and so on. So that is obviously a work in progress. But I think from the point where we were at the beginning of the year to now, it's a big step forward that we are tracking all this information and making it available to the community. So basically, anyone can come to the website, look at this data, drill down on workloads, and provide feedback if needed.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your work. Always nice to see what's being worked on there. Does anyone have any more questions or anything for the good of the order? Cool. Well, I have no particular agenda for the rest of the meeting, but I'll hang out, see if anyone wants to talk about something they're working on. I personally have been going through the ML documentation, trying to make some sense of that. That has been pretty rough. Nothing, huh?
It's okay.
It's all right.
Everyone
All right.
needs to go register. That's what they're all waiting for. So
All right. Well, I think we can probably call this to a close. I have no further subjects, but I just wanted to let you know that my nurse came into the room with a red crayon in her hand, and I was like, what's that for? And she's like, oh, I need to draw some blood.
it's
Yeah.
dad jokes for days.
All right. Cool. All right. That's all I got. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for listening to my dad joke.
Well, thank you, folks.
Thanks, everyone.